Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is March the 18th, 2025. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits, and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Today was a solid day. I would say it was very nice for a Tuesday. Work went well. We stayed at a steady pace, not too slow, but overall, a consistent day, very solid. I will say I was struggling with the shoulder pain throughout most of my day. I think about halfway through, I caved and was like, yeah, let's just take the Advil. Let's just get back on it. And I gotta say, it did work some wonders for me this time today. It seemed like my shoulder kind of rallied, and even better, as I went into the gym, I really had no problems. Really slight on the pain, at least compared to days prior. So we'll take it. Also, it was nice to kind of pump a little bit harder. I thought that was good. I thought that was solid to kind of up the weight again. I know oh, Isaiah, you just said you're tuning it down. It's like, yes, I still am in that process, but I do obviously want to keep, continuing to kind of get back up just with better form, right? So it was nice to kind of see that I can do that. Also, it was nice that even though it was busy, it wasn't as busy as yesterday. So that was also cool. Very nice. We love that. I'd say the only thing is I definitely avoided the calf raise. I just did a seated version. Which is kind of a bummer in some ways because I can't max out as hard. It's not as big enough. There's less of a range there. But that being said, the goal isn't really max out anymore, or right now at least. So the seated calf raise is totally fine for what we're doing. And also I found some other ways to kind of get that kind of calf raise with some weight. I've really noticed that I'm using a lot more weights in general, just like free weights, or even just weights for a barbell, or not barbell, for the bench press or whatever. I just kind of say, hey, do a couple squats with this, or do, a couple of calf raises with this, maybe do a little couple of, I don't know what it's called, but I kind of raise it over my head, sometimes put it over my back, bring it back down, something like that. I'm trying to use all the parts of the cow, so to speak. So yeah, overall it was nice. It was just a nice full session at the gym. So yeah, we love that. I'd say the only caveat, and maybe it's not a caveat, is just that I'm still hanging at the same 211, which can kind of be frustrating because obviously I would like to see weight loss. I'd like to see that number get lower and lower and lower, right? But I do think that we are hitting a plateau again, or we are at a plateau. My fears may be that this might be my final plateau, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, the journey stops. I still think I can hopefully make strides by just being consistent still, keeping with the diet, and really just trying to expand on just muscle growth, so to speak. And hopefully, that still has weight loss in it, just I lose my fat percentage, right? But that might be a bit of a fantasy. We'll see. We'll let time tell that. But hopefully, I just intend to keep at it and not deviate too much, but also not get too discouraged because I feel like that's something that's really easy for me to do. I'm very prone to impatience. And, I think definitely a younger me would see, results like this over, a couple weeks and be like, ugh, this isn't working. And I'd really want to pivot or squirm out of it. But I really think that we're still on the path. We're still doing good work. And I'm happy with the overall progress we've made over the past, 7 months. So, we'll take it for right now, for sure. And, hopefully I'll report back with some better results. But, there you go. That is where we're at for today. Let's go ahead and do our startup and we'll get into some news. Ooh-wee. All right. Our first story comes from the BBC. Let's see. It's a bit of a live update thing, so we'll read the bullet points here. Excuse me. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says combat in Gaza has resumed with full force following the biggest wave of strikes on the Strip since the ceasefire began in January. The strikes, which the Hamas-run health ministry say killed more than 400 people, are just the beginning, Netanyahu warns. He also remains committed to securing the release of all hostages still in Gaza. Israel believes there are 59 people being held, with 24 thought to be alive. Granted, it's crazy to say that, but once again, knowing full and damn well that you are doing strikes on them, on these people that you are trying to rescue, which is why it's a valid concern by the people who like have family who are being held hostage. They're like, look, this is Israel being like, hey, we don't care about these. We don't care about your family. We don't care about these hostages. We just want to get back to doing our genocide. That's really what we want. You know, and in terms of this ceasefire, where is it at? It looks like they threw it out the window. It looks like they've been pressuring Hamas now for weeks to be like, hey, you need to extend this ceasefire. And Hamas saying, no, we need to go to phase 2 of said ceasefire as it was written. And we need to start making progress there. But Israel does not want to do that. And the U.S., once again, is backing them to the hilt no matter what. And essentially is saying, well, Hamas had this coming. The Palestinians have this coming. I mean, obviously, it's fucked up that we are right back at it again. It's very unfortunate. It's not here, and I couldn't find any concrete article for it. But I'm also pretty sure that they did strikes in southern Syria, and they might have done strikes in Lebanon as well. So I mean, they really are just back to doing a trilateral offensive. Just showing out in the region again that we will kill. We will do what we want to, quote unquote, defend ourselves, defend the home. And maybe even get back some hostages along the way. Put a fucking huge question mark on that. But I mean, it brings me no joy to, be back on this. I mean, the one upside about this ceasefire, despite how stringy and fragile as it was, it didn't even stop the killing, by the way. We've even talked about that. There was killings that were still happening, as well as them, withholding aid and things like that, threatening to shut electricity down, or actually doing that. At least it was less. At least it wasn't this 400 people in a fucking weekend. With more to come, because I mean, essentially they're like, yeah, once again, Trump is backing us. We're fine. We can keep this up. We can do this as long as we want. Because inevitably with the ceasefire, even with the quote unquote extension, what they're trying to put on Hamas, they were going to get back to this, which is what everyone was trying to avoid besides Israel and the U.S. So, unfortunately a sad way to start, but that's how we got to do it sometimes. But from one front to another, we got to talk about another perfect phone call by our favorite orange president and our favorite president / dictator / spy king, whatever the fuck you want to call Putin today, from Reuters. Putin agrees to 30-day halt on energy facility strikes, but no full Ukraine ceasefire. So this isn't even half of a ceasefire. This feels like a quarter of a ceasefire. And it boggles the mind that Trump is going to work this this is working totally fine. Russia's being totally compliant, as opposed to Ukraine that never says thank you, the Zelensky that never says thank you, and he's a dictator, blah, 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 blah. All this bullshit that Trump's been spouting over the past fucking few weeks just to get on the phone with fucking Putin and more or less be coerced and bribed into a ceasefire that's not even a fucking ceasefire. We're just doing weird talks at this point to try to get more concessions more or less for Russia. But let's dig in a little bit. Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed on Tuesday to stop attacking Ukrainian energy facilities temporarily, but declined to endorse a full 30-day ceasefire that President Donald Trump hoped would be the first step towards a permanent peace deal. I just want to take a pause here up top to remind us that Trump said he could wrap this shit up in a day. 24 hours. He said, for sure I can do that. Then, of course, as we were, creeping post-inauguration or, to inauguration, all that shit, he, said, hey, it might take some time. It might take some months. But, we see now that it doesn't matter what side this administration is talking to, they are fucking it up. They are not doing well at all. We are just talking about a ceasefire, but we are not getting anything really done here. And we look like fucking idiots the whole way, despite whether we're talking to Zelensky or we're talking to fucking Putin. I guess that's the the comic relief in this is that we just look like a bunch of clowns here. But of course, our great businessman negotiator Donald fucking J. Trump is gonna lead us through it. He's gonna be our steward to peace. We'll see. Ukraine said it would support the scaled back agreement, which would require both countries to hold off firing on each other's energy infrastructure for about a month. Experts said Putin avoided making significant concessions that could be a play for time as Russian troops advance in eastern Ukraine. So essentially, this is only just a minor pause in certain areas of Ukraine. It doesn't necessarily stop any violence anywhere else, So Russia could still make pushes. They can still make the argument that Ukraine's going to be making pushes as well, which I'm sure that they already have said or will say in the future. So, I really don't see what this has really accomplished. It's just a phone call between the two of them. Also, some details I've kind of gathered. Granted, it might not be like fully concrete to say, oh, this is verified. But from what I heard, Putin made more of a personal play to Trump in the way of saying, hey, we're going to give America like mineral rights, this, that, and the third, blah, blah, blah. But what we don't want is this and that and blah, blah, blah out of Ukraine. So essentially they're just using like Trump as some kind of crooked middleman and appeasing to him. Meanwhile, Ukraine is completely iced out of this fucking conversation. They're not, they have to kind of take what's given. Otherwise they're ungrateful and they'll lose aid. Now, Trump says he didn't talk about aid at all, but also I believe that was something that was on the table in terms of like, well, what are you guys funding for Ukraine? If you guys are still giving them bullets, I'm not happy about that. If you're giving them weapons, I'm not happy about that, right? So, I don't know. To me, this seemed like a sloppy, messy start to these quote-unquote ceasefire talks, at least between the bigwigs, Trump and Putin. But I'm sure that's going to get airbrushed a bit from this administration to be saying, hey, we did a great job. This is a great start. Things are only going to go up from here. It's only going to get better. And maybe so. Maybe I will eat a bit of crow here in the future. And maybe in a couple months he does get this ceasefire at least. And then maybe that leads to some fucking peace. You got to take it however you can get it, I guess, especially these fucking trying times. But it just seems like a really bad joke. It seems like this is not off to a rip-roaring start. And once again, it is Trump trying to play Ukraine in so many ways and then getting played by Putin in so many ways. So once again, it just makes us look like a big-ass fucking clown on the world stage, in my opinion, and really isn't accomplishing fucking bo diddly. But here we are, yapping about it. But yeah, let's go ahead and move along. We actually have some more Trump-related news, though this is an update in terms of the JFK assassination files, the pages. But yeah, from ABC News, government releases thousands of declassified pages related to JFK assassination. The National Archives on Tuesday released thousands of pages of declassified records related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963. The records were posted to the National Archives website, joining recently released records posted in 2023, 2022, 2021, and 2017 through 2018. The release consists of approximately 80,000 pages of previously classified records that will be published with no redactions, said the announcement from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Additional documents withheld under court seal or for grand jury secrecy and records subject to Section 6103 of the Internal Revenue Code must be unsealed before release. He signed that in January 23rd. We talked about that. Let me see here. There's one little parting part I wanted to talk about. Tuesday's release represents a small outstanding tranche of more than 6 million pages of records collected by the National Archives, the majority of which have already been declassified and are available online or in person for review, according to the agency. So I don't know how relevant these pages are. I think hearing that the amount of 80,000 sounds, there's got to be more there. There's got to be something to all this shit. That so many pages of, previously, unreleased, redacted information. Oh my gosh. We'll see. If anything of relevance is worth noting, I would love to come back and give you all an update again. I dare say that the JFK assassination is probably like the last really interesting conspiracy theory that I learned about growing up, and I think it still holds for me today. So I would love to get more information, more insight that would give us more of a clue, more of a map to what happened. Though, I mean, you talk to several camps and theories of thought. This is already done. We already know everything. We know enough to really paint the picture. But I mean, it's hard. I could subscribe to a couple camps of thinking and really feel confident. So hopefully this information does kind of nudge to one theory or another, or maybe points to even something even that we haven't thought of. Who knows? I don't know. But I don't think so. I've said this before the last time. This didn't seem really relevant from what people were saying, that there really wasn't much to really dig or pull out, but maybe I'm getting it wrong there. Once again, I would love to eat some crow and be wrong. I'll take my humble pie. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Because it means I have more cool and interesting news to talk about. How this guy got his shit rocked. Anyway. Let's go ahead and move along. There really isn't much else to pick from the bones there. Let's go to Peru. From the Associated Press. Peru declares an emergency and deploys the army as violence surges in the capital. Peru's president declared a state of emergency in the capital Monday and ordered the deployment of soldiers to help police address a surge of violence amid widespread outcry a day after the killing of a popular singer. President Dina Boluarte's government published a decree saying that the state of emergency will last 30 days and authorities will restrict some rights, including the freedom of assembly and movement. That means the police and the army would be able to detain people without a judicial order. I know how I feel about that. That is very boo, tomato town. It's very scary when you do this. Obviously, the reasons are understandable if you're trying to clamp down on violence and da-da-da-da. But usually, this is a blank check that a government wants to use so that they can bang heads around and maybe get, some semblance of peace. And then they go, okay, well, things are better now. But, I mean, this isn't the first time that they've done this in recent history. So, clearly, the first one didn't really, stick. And here we are again. Peru has seen an increase of killings, violent extortion, and attacks on public spaces in recent months. Police reported 459 killings from January 1st to March 16th and 1,909 extortion reports in January alone. But outcry crested after the killing Sunday of Paul Flores, the 39-year-old singer of the cumbia band Armonia 10. In Congress, opposition lawmakers requested a vote of no confidence against Interior Minister Juan Jose Santibanez for what they say is a lack of a plan to fight rising violence. The vote is expected to be discussed in Congress's plenary. I cannot say plenary. We're gonna say plenary. That might be wrong, but hey, fuck it. Later this week. Plenary. What a word. Flores was shot to death early Sunday when assailants attacked the bus he and his bandmates were traveling after a concert in Lima. Cumbia is a Latin music style that people dance to the rhythm of drums, maracas, and other instruments. The attack against the popular singer was not the only violent event over the weekend. On Saturday, an object exploded at a restaurant in the capital, injuring at least 11 people. Boluarte's government previously decreed a state of emergency in an attempt to stem the violence between September and December. So that was the recent one I was mentioning. Sorry. I think I said multiple. But yeah, I mean, Boluarte has kind of been in the hot seat since she's, assumed the position. So this is probably not helping, but I mean, here we are. Also, I feel like this is old news. I feel compelled to say, but I think I missed out on Ecuador. I think... was it Daniel Noboa, the president? He was like, hey, I got to give the police more power because, once again, we got to fight crime. And that was a thing that I was kind of wanting to cover, but it just got lost in the weeds, and I felt like at least just mentioning that, at least on some side talk shit. But yeah, that's off the cuff. By all means, you want to look that up and fact check me. Go ahead. Do it, nerd. I won't stop you. Anyway, let's take it to space. We got some good news to cover. Guess who's back? They're back. All right, anyway, you probably already know. But yeah, let me go ahead and take my last break, and we will take it to space, and then bring it on back. Oh, that was loud. Sorry. Oh, man. Quite botched. Actually, I forgot to mention. Parking gate update. The minivan was not there when I got home today. So, AKA my notice, it worked. And I don't know if I've explained what my process is for when I realize like, hey, you're in my you're in my reserve spot. This is my spot I get for living here. You got to move. So I can technically run it all the way out the flagpole and call management, but I feel like that's some snake shit to do. So I try to avoid that, right? Usually what I will do, I will do the curmudgeon shitty neighbor thing where I will write on a sign, I'll write on a piece of paper, this is an assigned spot. And I will go outside and I will put it on their window shield. Or the window shield. I don't know, whatever, it's working. Anyway, I will put it there under their wiper blade and and we'll see what happens. If they ignore me, if let's say, and sometimes I think they're ignoring me because of the fact that their car is broken down in a situation. Well, that sucks. But you did park your car that's broken in my spot. That's a problem. You didn't consult me. You didn't come, like, you see the 34. You could just, you connect the knots. And they don't do that. So they go, okay, what's the next thing? If that doesn't work, then I call management. Then I go full snake. I Cobra Kai. And I say, hey, they're not moving. And then they handle it from there. I don't bother with it anymore. And yeah, they usually get fucking towed. And, good luck with that. Just get the fuck out of my spot. But luckily in this situation, the level 1 worked. You write on the fucking piece of paper, you lay it out, and then they move. They get the picture. Actually, I saw that they had just parked. I didn't see who it was, but I was like, okay, they clearly were just in their van, but hey, they're not in my spot. That's all I give a shit about at the end of the day. Look, I am not going to be neighbor of the year. That's not my fucking goal. Never has been. But I just want to be left alone. I just want my spot. I just want my shit to be where it's supposed to be. And you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, right? Like, I don't feel like that's unfair. I don't think I'm being unreasonable here. But, anyway, into that chapter. I know I kind of extrapolated a little too long, but hey, sometimes, hopefully you guys like a little back blog action, you know what I mean? Anyway, from ABC News, SpaceX Dragon successfully splashes down, returning NASA astronauts back to Earth. The 2 NASA astronauts whose 8-day stopover on the International Space Station, or the ISS, turned into a 9.5-month mission, are finally back on Earth. On Tuesday at 5:57 p.m. Eastern, I think, EDT. I don't want to say that and be completely fucking wrong. Anyway, SpaceX Dragon Freedom, what a fucking name, splashed down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida, carrying Sunny Williams, and Butch Wilmore, along with NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gabrunov. I'm sure I nailed that. It was an idyllic day for the return to Earth Tuesday, with the astronauts splashing down to 78 degrees Fahrenheit weather. A pod of curious dolphins was also seen swimming around the capsule as ground crews were preparing the capsule to be opened after landing. The capsule was eventually brought out of the water and placed on a recovery ship, where the astronauts finally got to have their first breath of fresh air in over 9 months. So they go through a bit of, what the trip down was. I think it was a 17-hour trip. Really wasn't any snags. I think the capsule had to do a bit of course correction on the way down, but overall made it exactly where it was supposed to land, like almost down to the time. So I was like, that's really fucking impressive. So, I mean, hey, sometimes you do got to give credit where it's fucking due. Shout out to SpaceX. You mission accomplished. Awesome. And I guess fucking, Darkman X Elon Musk himself is going to get credit for that. Sure, whatever. I'm glad that these motherfuckers are home. We've covered this a few times. We've touched on this story a few times. I found it was very interesting to see the spin on both sides of the conversation. Not necessarily, obviously, like, I'm not talking politics here, but just like you had NASA people coming out and saying like, oh yeah, this is crazy that they've been in space for so long for such a short mission. But like they know what they signed up for. They're astronauts. They're cream of the crop. This is fine. They're doing great. Like Sunny has done like so so much cool stuff. They've both done like a lot of work on the ISS. They've been really great crew members. Da 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 da. Blah blah blah. Like definitely huge positive spin. But then I've also read and seen coverage along the way that was like more darker tinged, where it's like the dramatic, drastic effects on the physical health of Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, blah blah blah, and like trying to show like the worst pictures of them, and it's like, man, that's crazy that just a newsie, a consumer of the news, whatever, can be scrolling and see both sides of thought. Now, I would more want to believe the NASA spin of just like, hey, these are astronauts and they know what they signed up for. They're doing fine. They're going to be all right. Everything's going to be A-okay for them. Awesome. Because rags like the Daily Mail were posting the other of saying like, oh, this is really potentially dire and really bad, blah, 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 blah. And I just feel like that's trying to tug at your like heartstrings and stuff, because if it was someone like you or I, yeah, we would be this would be like our Apollo whatever. This would be scary as fuck. Like, I'd be losing my mind up there. But once again, we're not really built for that shit, okay? I mean, maybe you are, maybe I'm not. I just like space, like from an armchair perspective, okay? That's my vibe on this shit. But bullshit aside, whatever, news bullshit aside, I'm glad they're back. I'm glad they're healthy, or at least seemingly so. They seem like they were in good spirits post-landing. So yeah, I mean, obviously we'll have an update, I guess, if I hear any like abnormalities or problems, but yeah, I mean, really, no matter what, this was like an adventure of a lifetime, I'd imagine, for them. Whether you could say that's good or bad, But all that, I'm glad they're back on solid ground. So hell yeah to that. That is where I will leave it for today, though. If you would like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/IsaiahNews. Become a newsie today. Free ways to hit me up, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Subscribe to the YouTube. It's a free action. Shout out to the new subscriber that you have replaced the person who has left. So thank you so much for that. And then subscribe to or follow the TikTok, the Tiki-Taki, or the not the Facebook, but you can't follow me on Facebook. I'm on the meta. I'm in the metaverse. Whatever. Shout out to Mark, I guess. Boo. Fuck you, Mark. Anyway, no. Back on track. Spotify. That's what I meant to say. You can follow me on Spotify. You can give me 5 stars. Yeah, 5. Apple Podcasts. I'm also on there. I'm on Amazon, I think, for podcasts. I'm on all that shit. I'm on so many platforms. You can find me anywhere. I'm everywhere you want to be. I'm in the walls. No, I'm not. But yes, leave a like, leave a cool comment. Sharing is caring. I appreciate all that. Shout out to moms. Thank you so much. Your comments are very much appreciated. Hearts. But yes, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.